This is Getting Past Subtitles. My name is Sean Peel.
And I'm DK Lee.
And welcome to a brand new series. Something a little more fun, a little more action-packed, a little more for the masses, per se. It's a series you can't go wrong with. I feel like it's a subgenre that everybody gets a kick out of. It's particularly pretty popular, like, you know, in West, like here in the States. We see a lot of particularly comedy versions of these movies, right? I'm very interested to see kind of what Asian movies kind of do. I think, you know, Korea, like we talked about, there's a lot of crime and like gangster stuff,
cops, and
so it fits within the well-rounded nature of what they do. But for other places, not so common. Maybe more in China, but like I would think like old school like Hong Kong films, because you have like Police Story and like stuff like that, right? But I think particularly today we don't see a lot of that coming out, I guess, out of other Asian countries. So it should be I think interesting series as we go down. But this particular week we are kicking it off with, I feel like we kicked it off too high, because personally I love this movie.
Yeah.
This week we watched Midnight Runners. This came out in 2017. It's directed by
Jason
Ju Hwang Kim.
Yeah.
Jason.
Is that Jason?
No.
No.
I didn't see it, Jason.
Oh, okay.
I think this guy's Korean through and through. Yeah. This movie, I probably didn't even have to watch this movie again for the podcast. Like, that's probably how many times we've seen this movie in my household. This movie gets like quoted and memed on regularly at home.
Really?
Yeah. We love this movie. we love this movie a lot.
What do you quote from it?
Maybe like the
He's imitating
the thing, which is such a head nod. Man,
those stuff.
Hiya! It's like,
I don't know if that's really imitating.
So you want to fight, bro?
I don't think that's really a quote.
It's a meme. We meme on it. Yeah, I don't think I was the one that found this movie. I think my father was the one that found this movie originally, and I think we just watched it on. I think we just watched it online. I think we just were kind of like looking for movies, and then we just stumbled upon this one, and it's pretty funny. It really just checks all the boxes of like what you want in an entertaining movie, you know, as like blockbuster, quote unquote. It's just a well-rounded movie in general. And yeah, after that, it was just kind of like an instant hit in our hearts, and we watch it like pretty semi-regularly now. So yeah, this is definitely a movie that like I recommend to a lot of people, you know, like, oh yeah, you got to see this movie. Like, this is definitely one of the bangers to see if somebody hasn't watched a foreign film before, or is somebody that's like maybe into K-dramas but hasn't really seen like Korean movies, you know, any of that sense. This is one that is like a really good, like, safe option to kind of, it's like a gateway movie.
Yeah, I mean, the story is very simple. Characters are very clear cut, and you know, this genre I think is so prevalent in, you know, especially America. So
right.
It's not that hard to get into. Like, it's really easy. Even if you have a hard time like reading subtitles, I think you can still understand
100%
easily.
It's also not very like culturally specific, or like very heavy on counting on you to understand, like, you know, Korean culture, like language, or how like the police system works over there, or because like a lot of that's kind of fed to you as the movie goes along, or it's simplified enough for you to get it. I think it does a really good job of.
But it's fairly common sense, right? It's not like it's not that different in like let's say America.
We're cops. We bring justice.
Yeah.
You know, and also when it goes, you know, into the more darker side of like the criminal world, like all that's pretty brought up to speed really well as well, of like understanding like what is even, you know, their operation and what they're doing and things of that nature. So it all really hold your hand nicely, you know, but not too close, I would say, as well. There's a lot of show and doesn't tell. It's really good. I mean, it's like I said, it's not a complicated film, and it's a really good one.
Yeah.
Sure. How was your? Do you said you have seen this before? Probably. Maybe?
I thought I didn't, but I did. So
Like, this rings a bell again.
yeah, I feel like there's a lot of kind of movies like this in Korea. So like they
Sure.
sometimes blend in with each other. But yeah, watching it again, definitely remembered a lot of the scenes and a lot of the moments, and yeah, fun movie.
Through and through, fun movie.
Yeah.
Some good names, some pretty good cast members as well. Like it's pretty safe names. One of the main characters, so the guy that plays Ki-Joon Park Soo-jung, who is in Parasite, right?
Sojin, yeah.
Yeah, he was in the.
He was a
brother.
cameo.
Oh, his cameo.
Yeah. He is a friend.
Oh, he was a friend.
Yeah.
Oh,
He was the cameo friend.
got it.
That
For
came
the
out
brother.
like,
Yeah,
he's the one who gave him the.
he's the one that set up the whole damn thing. Apparently, this was his like first lead role in a movie before.
In a movie, yeah.
Yeah,
He probably did a lot of TV stuff.
Yeah. I looked the brothers like a bunch of TV credits, but everybody else is pretty nice. The guy who plays the teacher, Sung Dong-il, I like him. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he comes out in a lot of stuff.
He's pretty good. It's funny that you see like, because like I said, there is just so many like cops and crime drama, gangster stuff. So many actors just get typecast into like, you're the police guy.
Yeah.
You're the gangster.
He actually plays a very diverse set of roles. He's pretty good at it. He does a wide range of different roles, so it's pretty cool to see him in different movies.
As long as he doesn't get Chris Evans, you know?
Nah.
I'm like, guys, Chris Evans has talent. Don't doubt him. He's not just Captain America, guys.
I think it's harder for those kinds of characters, like hero characters, or just like these, big buff dudes. It kind of makes it harder for them to
That's true.
fit into different things because, people see them in a certain light.
Right.
They have such a...
The hero role is just so like iconic. It's hard to kind of get out of that box
Right.
after too long. So, especially like I said, if they're like a muscular character.
Right, but even like Tobey Maguire, right? Like it's like
Right.
you always think of him as Spider-Man more than anything else.
Right.
There's always like behind the back of your mind, you're a little bit like,
But he's
Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
I don't care if he's doing that.
He's like in a drama like film, and you're like, when is he
Spider-Man's
gonna,
doing that?
when is he gonna,
When is he gonna
go
break
back
out
to the
of
back
it?
alley
Yeah.
and rip up his shirt and
I think maybe the one actor that's actually done a pretty decent job of breaking out of the show would be, and I guess it's not part of really him either, like Henry Cavill as Superman, but also just because like DC has ripped apart.
Yeah,
the
but he
franchise.
plays a lot of like hero-esque
That's true. Yeah.
characters too, or like it's either heroes or like special agents or something like that.
True,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he plays
yeah.
very. It's still
They're pretty
fairly,
similar.
yeah.
They're different, like in and of themselves, but peeling it back, they're all kind of the same.
You never really see him like play like a like a professor or like or some kind of like
yeah.
less physical
Yeah.
character. It's
That's
usually
true.
a very physical character, but of a slightly different vein.
Right.
But usually pretty similar.
That's true.
Which is, I feel like he does have, pretty good, acting chops. And I think like they cast him pretty well in like Witcher and stuff too.
Sure.
But like I said, even Witcher is kind of like
that's
a
within
hero
the vein.
thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like
Anti-hero, whatever. Yeah. You still got there. Like I really liked him. I think people sleep on him on Mission Impossible. Like he does a really good job in that role. Yeah.
I would say like Tom Hardy would be somebody who can play a lot of different things, and sometimes I don't even realize it's him. Like
That no, yeah, true.
you know what I mean?
I forget. Like I mean, he's Bane obviously, but it's in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, he was Bane. Like
He also played Venom,
yep.
right? Like
mean, that's
he
the most
does those hero stuff, but I guess it's a little bit easier if you're like the villain, right? It's not as
Sure.
like, and then usually he's like changing, right? He's not like fully his face all the
Right.
time, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of helps.
You're like, is that Tom Hardy
Like-
back there?
Like Christian Bale is like a person who I like don't think of him as like the Dark Knight
Right,
always.
right.
He would be like an actor that I would be like, oh, like he's really like.
That's an actor.
Yeah, I mean he's really like
Yeah,
he
he's
has
got a
really
range.
like a lot of
Yeah.
range, but I think that's also a testament to just how much he's willing to transform his body
Oh
for
my
different
god,
roles.
dude! He's such a and like knowing like Christian Bale, just like seeing him, it's just funny. Like they take on the roles that they'll take. They'll do anything. But like man, you think Christian Bale and then you're like American Psycho, like.
Yeah,
But then you go from that to being like
Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney and like Ford versus Ferrari. Like
Yeah,
it's the same guy. It's so weird
and
to
then
think that
and
way.
then he does Love and Thunder, what is it, the God Butcher or whatever.
Yeah. The God Butcher.
Yeah.
And even seeing that, it was just
Gore,
like,
right?
Gore,
Yeah.
yeah. Even in that role, he just is capable of doing so much. But I feel like if I met him on the street, I would have never think of him as somebody being.
It depends on how much weight he has on that day. It's like, oh.
Am I gaining another 100 pounds or
Yeah.
am I losing 200? I don't know. But yeah.
Going back to
what were we talking about again? This is a different kind of podcast, huh?
yeah, so
Midnight Runners. Oh yeah. It's good movie. It's like not super dated. It came out 2017. There's been a couple of other iterations. Apparently, there's like an Indian remake that came out in 2020. Also in 2020, there's a TV drama that was made called Detective Novice Midnight Runner.
is that like Korean one or?
Yeah, it's a K drama. Yeah, I think tried watching it, but it wasn't that great. Maybe made it like an episode or two, but not the same. Not the same. I don't know what else to like say. But, like, it's a really just good, enjoyable movie. I think this time around when I was watching it, just kind of like thinking about what I could pick up after so many viewings, and like maybe what I could appreciate. Just like it's one of those cases where, like I said, it's a good, solid movie, and that like a lot of it comes down to performances, like the script, like everything just feels really, really tight. I kept going back and forth between like watching the movie and seeing like the timeline of like how far along I am in the movie, because it's I feel like you can really notice how good and like tight a script is like seeing where certain events and like plot points and changes kind of happen at certain time periods along the movie. A lot of that goes to credit of like setting up the movie and like setting up the world and the characters, and then like going into the plot. Like right at the 30-minute mark is like the first 30 minutes is really like all set up, and right at the 30-minute mark is when the girl gets kidnapped, like to a T, and then that like kicks off the like the plot of the movie. But it was so interesting to see like half an hour is a long time, right? But like I never felt bored or like lost my way in like world building and like setting up to like kind of kick off the movie per se.
Yeah.
I think
Even like the first 10 minutes of the movie, you get the characterization of the two characters right away.
right.
Like even the very first scene when they're all saying goodbye to their parents or whatever, like just like how they act towards how they are with their parents, or
Right.
like their reactions and stuff, like really tell a lot about their character. And like it's a lot of like just showing us who they are, right, through the interactions that they have, which is I
Right.
think a really good way of showing that. Also, like when they're cutting their hair, right, and just their interactions while they're doing that,
Yeah.
all like add to the characterization during that 30 minutes that I think is really really effective.
Yeah. And I mean, this movie does a great job of like tying knots and like keeping to those characteristics, right? Like with Hee-Yeol is like, he's super kind of academic and very like, did you sterilize that?
Yeah.
And these are the kind of like jokes and just characteristics that keep company along with the movie, and they're always familiar and never forgotten as the movie continues on from start to finish, you know? And there's a lot of like bits and things that come full circle to later part. And like that just kind of adds to like the feeling of completeness that the movie has. And I think that just also contributes to, you know, the solidity that I felt with the movie at the end of the day, you know? It's just the feeling of nothing being wasted. And that can sometimes maybe be hard to do in a movie because it can be easily lost when telling a story to like draw up something and then forget about it midway or like pick up pieces and kind of leave them behind by the end, you know? But there's so much to say about like a full
Or sometimes
circle.
it could also feel like artificial. Like it could
Right.
feel like it's manufactured. Like I'm putting this scene in so that I can do this, right?
Right.
I can achieve this kind of, you know, moment. But in this movie, everything felt very, you know, very natural in one sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very tight, but then that tightness doesn't make it feel like it's just, I gotta get from point A to point B.
Right. Yeah, everything does fall pretty naturally from
Yeah, like
in sequence of
it
events.
seems like they're, you know, kind of like living their lives and stumbling upon a certain,
Yeah.
you know, mystery, and then certain, you know, things happen, and they're like naturally compelled to do things
Yeah.
rather than it feeling like, oh, the story has to go on, so let's push them this direction.
Right. And like I think that adds to what I was saying earlier when I was bringing up like why it takes, you know, there's 30 minutes of just building up and then we finally kind of get the story going. Like I said, it doesn't feel, you know, artificial or like the kidnapping or anything was like forced or like for them to, you know, start investigating and be contributed feels forced. Like it all kind of falls naturally in. But I think that has a lot to do with how well we know the characters by that point, you know?
Yeah.
And then we can start believing all the wild shit that they do later to solve this murder, you know?
Yeah, like the whole reason why they went out for that, you know, leave was to find like girls. And then
I'm trying to get lucky tonight.
right. Like they sold that well enough so that like that whole part when they're like chasing after the girl makes sense. And like their friendship all makes sense. And then even though, you know, it's like very in one sense like very over the top when they're like doing the rock paper scissors and the girls in the middle and
You
they
see
don't
everything
see it,
behind them, yeah.
but like it still works in that vein.
Right. And a lot of that, you know, in the academy stuff is really kind of ammo to be used for the rest of the movie. Because obviously they apply everything that they've learned into the academy into practice when they're looking for this girl. And like I said, none of that, I mean, all that really adds to completely, like all that ends up coming back and like we see the application of it later. And so it really kind of fills up the rest of the movie and gives you like constant satisfaction of, oh yeah, we got to use like when it's like, okay, we should use the 3 steps of like investigation or whatever. And he's like, yeah, totally, sure. And he's like, find the evidence, look at the crime scene, and look into something else.
It's like the like personal belongings, and then it's like find out like the identity of the person, and then find out the location, the crime scene.
And he was like, and there's like a moment of pause. He's like,
it's like, oh,
yeah, right, yeah. He was like, shit,
my test.
and even like after that, so when they go back and they're doing it, and you know, they only have like they can only go back to the crime scene because they don't know the victim, they don't have evidence until they go back, and they look for the tteokbokki stand, and then they're like kind of at their wits end because there's like 30 tteokbokki stands all around town, and they struggling to find the right one, and they're like, you know, they have that moment of like, we can't do this, like everybody's gonna close, like it's too late. And then Ki-Joon brings up, he's like, oh, this might be a bad time to mention it, because like, you know what to put down for that test. He's like passion, tenacity, and like a big heart.
Yeah.
But then, you know, it's like an out of their comment, and then they laugh.
That kind of spurs them on to like
continue the search, right? So that was something that I noticed this time around. I was like, oh, that's smartly placed and like strategically placed
Right,
there.
because it's such a like typical like feel good answer.
Right.
But in that moment, that's kind of what they needed more than just like the logical
Yeah.
step by step things.
But it's also not like shoehorned either, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a direct reference to like a moment that they've been recalling during that whole time. So
Yeah. And like one thing that I think I realized, not just by watching this movie, but just the genre in general, in like buddy cop movie, for it to be good, like the two characters have to have really good chemistry,
yeah.
and the two characters also have to have kind of almost binary, like they have to be complementary, but they also have to have their own like strong identity.
Yes.
And in this movie, you can clearly see that the two characters have very different, ways of looking at and approaching life. And I think that also complements them when they're, doing the investigation.
Yeah.
For example, like obviously, the example that we mentioned where Hee-Yeol is a lot more brainy and he's more on the logical side, and he's the thinker, the brain of the two, while while Ki-Joon is the brawn, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who
Muscle.
yeah, he's the one who beats people down, interrogate them, make sure he gets the answers, kind of thing. So those kind of like complementary characters really make the buddy cop movie, and I think that this is like the perfect formula for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, opposites attract, right? And it is for even a buddy cop to even exist, you have to have like good characters, like good chemistry between characters. But like you said, they also good duality and good identities for either of them.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want to have like the same character.
Yeah, like think
twice.
about like Bad Boys or Men in Black, or
Right.
things like that.
I mean, I instantly go to a Rush Hour.
Yeah, Rush Hour. Obviously Rush Hour.
So, and this one they have a really good chemistry. They really complement each other. There's just a lot of good moments that they kind of share, and like you also never feel excluded out of their friendship either. We kind of know their dynamic and are in with like their jokes.
But also like we see them come together as friends, right?
Right.
Because in the beginning they're not really friends.
Right.
It's only once they kind of go through that ordeal together on the mountain, right?
I love that scene where he's like, I give you my sausages. He's like, sausages.
I'll buy you steak.
He's like, what? He's like, best marbling. Hop on. Okay, fine. Yeah.
What I like my favorite part was when Hee-Yeol is I think he's getting like measured or something like that.
Oh yeah, for the uniform.
and Ki-Joon is like, he's like saying like dumbass or whatever.
He's like,
the glasses. Such a good way.
I love how the other student, Young Jun, he's always in the frame, but like in a corner of a frame. He's always in the scene, but like out there. He's just like looking behind, watching the interaction. Like look forward. He's like, oh my bad, so sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff in the academy. I like probably my favorite of the comedy bits are the martial arts bits in the class.
You know that martial arts instructor always comes out as a comedic like martial artist, dude.
Really?
Yeah. There's so many like
yikes.
there's like a drama too where like he comes out as like this like master of like a certain like martial arts or whatever, but he's kind of like a phony.
Yeah.
But then he actually like ends up helping the dude like
Kick some
butts. Ass. Yeah.
Yikes. And he's like, if somebody comes at you with a knife, he's like, slowly. He's like, slowly.
Yeah.
Semicircle around. Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny.
Just gold. And then like it comes back later and he like actually uses it. He like kicks that guy's ass. He's like, it works. You gotta use it. He's like, use what you learn, and he's like doing the handcuff moves as he's going down. That's good. Yeah, that's good.
What I like about the movie too is how they incorporated the comedy, but they didn't make it so that the comedy like overwhelmed the dramatic parts of the movie.
Right.
And I think that's like a hard thing to do, where it's like when it is a really serious moment, like how to make sure that it doesn't conflict with each other, but you are able to use the comedy to alleviate some of that seriousness later on.
Right.
Because like a lot of times when the serious things happen, like it's serious, right? And then like maybe like near the end, when everything kind of like dies down a little bit, they add a little bit of it. But usually the comedic bits are kind of separate from the dramatic parts of the movie, and I think that's a pretty like it's a hard thing to do, right? It's like a hard balance, but I think they did really well in that respect.
Agreed. I mean, you can really notice, and like, I mean, one of the biggest things I noticed too is like the first half of the movie is pretty much like buddy cop comedy, and then once the kidnapping happens and they're getting into it is when the tone starts to shift, you know? And there's like a bit, and there's a really good, I think I have to really applaud this movie for being greatly progressive in tone, because I mean at that moment, once they're starting to investigate this girl's kidnapping, there's a little bit of like seriousness and some comedy thrown in, but it's like, you know, they're just kind of starting, they're like really frantic, you know, trying to like apply the knowledge that they know, but like they're still like kind of everywhere, right? They're starting to get invested, but they're not like in the hole per se, right? And like there's a specific scene that I noticed is like a really great turning point. Which is so they go back to, they're looking for that taboki, and then they find the lady that sold it to her, and then they find out where she works, and then they go to like that ear parlor place that's illegal, you know, and like that's comedy. And from there they find out her address through the coworker, and then they go to the house and they find that one guy, and he like runs away from them thinking that they're like chasing after him. Yeah. And then that's when like the fight thing comes back around. Right. And then they duct tape him to the wall. Yeah. But from there they go back to the apartment because there's like two other girls that live there, and that's when they find out like, oh, she's a runaway, and then like all the other kids that are living there are runaways as well. But like that was a scene when they're talking to those girls and they like break down after finding out that the girl is missing, Jae-ho. Like that was a really scene that shifts the tone, I think, and like from there on out it becomes really serious, pretty much. It becomes like really dramatic as they get like deeper and deeper into everything. Because after that they find out who the like the broker is, the one that they sold off to. Yeah. And then they go to the restaurant, and
they're also after the point after they get captured, and then after they run away from the mob. Right. And then they call the professor. Yeah. And then he goes to the location and they like start talking, and he's like, you can't do anything about it. Yeah. And that after that moment, it also kind of like they reaffirm their like, you know, desire to like,
we're going to find it.
Yeah, we're going to find it.
We're the only one that can do this.
And that's when it kind of gets a little bit like more serious in tone. Right. In terms of like how resolved they are to do it.
It's like not like dark drama, but it becomes more like Rocky.
Yeah.
Serious.
Right.
Yeah. And then it kind of just becomes an action movie by the end of that, right? Because they're like prepping, and then they go to then they find out that they have like the fertility center, and then they track them down to do that. So, but all that is a different genre compared to, you know, the comedy that we were watching beforehand. Right. So
they like sprinkle in like little bits and pieces of it, like when they're fighting the big baddie. Right. And then at the end, then they're like doing the handcuffs and stuff like that. They add a little bit of it, but then overall, I think it's very fairly, you know, straightforward.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's balanced pretty well, you know. Yeah. But I do think that from how we started to how we kind of get there, that progressiveness really does happen pretty seamlessly and really good. And by the end of the movie, like I do feel emotional. You know, they save the girl, and then there's like that last little end credit scene and everything. And I think you don't have an emotional response to that if you don't have, you know, the dark drama, the everything else that happens afterward, you know.
It's like the moment she cries is like, oh man,
I'm gonna cry.
Right?
Son of a gun.
And then you just kind of like realize like just how much like they went through and everything.
Yeah. We made the right choice.
Yeah.
So they went from boys to men. And then,
but yeah, I like the message of the movie as well, right? It's a lot of just like the bureaucracy of like policing,
right,
and just like all the things that you kind of have to like go through, which I think in one sense like you kind of need like structure and order,
right?
But then it's also like if something is happening, like like and you can take care of it,
yeah.
you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And I think they kind of had a very good, not like an overarching kind of like, it didn't feel like forced. Right? It just kind of felt like it's part of story, which I liked.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, like, yeah, see how bad the police are, or like, see how like
see how corrupt this is,
or like how bad they're doing. It wasn't like that, but it was actually very invested in the story that they wanted to tell, but also having that kind of message.
Right. I mean, it was a driving force for like them as well. It's they're constantly being reminded. I mean, they're constantly being held at a standstop because the real police, like the real investigation units, are back ordered and can't do it at the moment. You know, and it's because of that, it's forcing them to take action. Now versus waiting in the back burner for later.
Pushing them forward.
Right. And so it's like I said, it doesn't feel forced at all, but it's like within the story, and like it's a driving force, and we're constantly being reminded like kind of both sides of like it's what's that word? I mean, it's just kind of a big predicament where they're being taught like, oh, they have the most important 7 hours is all you have for the critical hours, they call it, right? And then meanwhile time is being wasted and they're doing their investigation. It's like, I don't know, but the other special investigations unit won't be able to do it for like a month. And they're like, a month?
Yeah.
What do you mean? You have like 2 hours a month?
But I also like the arc of the characters' motivations, because when they're in the academy, like they talk to each other and they're like, oh yeah, because the other friend, I forget his name, but the guy who they steal the clothes from, he's like, oh yeah, my father's like a chief, and like I've always wanted to become a policeman, but like they're like, oh yeah, like I didn't have any money, so like I came into the academy, and the other guy's like, yeah, kind of messed up by accident. I came here.
That is so funny. He's like, so why'd you come here? He's like, where did you go to high school? And he's like,
the best like science.
Science, prestigious high school. And he's like, why didn't you go to KAIST, which is like the MIT of Korea? And he's like, oh, I just wanted to do something different. All my friends went to KAIST. And he's like, so you came here?
Yeah. But I like the fact that like by the like almost midpoint when they start like going heavy on the training,
right?
Like it's the events that occurred to that point that motivates them, and that actually gives them the like desire to become policemen,
right?
And that's what fuels them towards the end. And then after everything, and like they're getting reprimanded, and they say like, yeah, I really want to become a cop, like I really want to become a policeman, like you really believe them at that moment because of all the things that they went through. And that motivation really feels genuine. And I really like that arc of like them not really having or like being lost in their motivations of really like being in the force, because even when they go looking for the girls, right, like go hunting for girls, after that, like they're like sitting in the the restaurant, and they're like, oh man, why am I wasting my time like trying to become a cop? Like that was a pivotal point, I think, of like their internal dilemma, of their motivations and why they want to become a cop. I think they use that like that club scene really well to deliver that in a very like quick but efficient way.
And engaging way,
right? Well. And that's like what you were talking about in terms of like being a tight script, like using those moments not just for, because they're like killing like 3 birds with one stone. they're fitting the comedy in it, they're fitting the internal motivations, and they're setting up the moment for when the girl gets captured.
Yep.
So all three of those things are being, captured, condensed in that one scene leading to the next scene. So like it's really an efficient but also a very like good way of and it feels natural of them pushing forward the story.
Yeah. That's why, like going back again to like that first half hour, like all of that is mainly within the academy up until they go to the club and stuff. But it's like the beginning part, like the first 10 minutes, right? It's like, who are our characters? And we're setting up their friendship. And now we're invested into both of them, and like then they become friends. And then there's a time skip 2 years later because they get accepted into the academy. And they're 2 years in. And then, we're kind of like watching their lives go by and
their daily lives,
routine, right?
Yeah.
And that all is essentially fuel to like after the club where they're like, well, what are we even doing with our lives? You know what I mean? It's because they're just there, they're doing it, and then they're like, what is it that they want to do? They just want to, meet a girl is at the end, and it all just kind of like tumbles very nicely into that. It's like, oh, we've spent 2 years in the academy doing what exactly, right? And like you said, then it's a really good arc that they start with like no purpose, no passion for what they're doing, and then they become like a real strive to become policemen through practice.
through the physical, like literal, like
through like actually doing it,
like field work.
They're basically like vigilantes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And then they don like the costumes. I like they come back for the equipment. They're like, oh my god, we made a big mistake. We got to return these.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to be said by just how good and like how tight the script is. It really just does.
There's like one thing that it's not really a plot hole per se, but it just kind of like felt weird. Was like when they finally get to the place where all the girls are like taken, like that weird like shady apartment looking place.
Yeah, they're in their rooms.
Yeah, and then they find that one girl. Like he breaks the door of the one girl.
Right.
They start like try to take her out, but then they like get blocked.
Yeah.
And then Ki-Joon has the girl, and he takes them to like a little like alley like corner.
Yeah.
He just leaves them there.
Are there.
He brings them. He goes back, and then later on they get captured, and the girls just stare forever. I'm assuming that like the bad guys took her. Right?
Yeah.
But it just kind of felt weird. Like he just leaves her there. He's like, yeah, I gotta go back. Sorry, girl.
Yeah, my bad. You stay here. And she's like knocked out cold.
Like I would think like you would hide her somewhere. Or, like...
Right. Actually, I kind of found that a little weird as well because I always forget that they actually attempt to save the girl.
Yeah.
I feel like it just would have went smoother if they couldn't open the doors.
Yeah.
Right. Because the gang is like right behind them anyway.
Yeah, I think it was just to kind of give that shock effect of like what they did to the girls and stuff like that. But it just kind of felt funny that he just left her in the alley and then went back to the guy.
I was so close.
Yeah.
Because it's like he gets the girl and then he's like, run away, like take her to the hospital. And you get like that faint thing of hope. And then it's like,
but the thing is like they escape, right? They escape from the place. And I would assume like
after
they would check, like go to the alleyway and like see if the girl's there or something. Like I don't know, like after or whatever, right?
Well, they were being chased. They didn't escape cleanly.
Well, I mean, like after the they go to the cop place, right? Like
they do check.
They don't check.
Yeah.
Well, they check the
thing, but not the alley.
Yeah,
well,
not the.
Well, now this is semantics.
Well, I mean, but you left her there literally.
Wait, there's this one girl that they probably don't know about because she's not here. I left her over there.
Anyways, and it just kind of felt funny, like just like that whole thing. It's like you said, maybe if they just left like where they weren't able to open the doors,
right,
it might have worked a little bit better. But I don't know. It's like not a big deal, but it just kind of felt like the point A to point B from that moment. It just kind of felt like you could have added just like something there. Not a big deal, but it just kind of felt weird.
You both got beaten up in that scene anyway, so
yeah.
It's like no, it didn't.
I mean, like the assumption is like they just took her back, right?
Right. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, doing too much maybe.
Yeah.
In that sense. Other than that, anything else to add? I mean, solid recommendation. Again, like I would definitely say for anybody to watch this like, easily.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very typical buddy cop film, I think.
Yes.
More, yeah.
I think like, that's why I say I feel like I mean it's so enjoyable. It's such a good such a good buddy cop movie. It's such a good movie on its own. That's all like, man, I feel like we put the bar too high because I just love this movie personally. So anything else, I'm like, but it's not Midnight Runners. We don't have those two characters. It's not going to be funny anymore.
Yeah, that's a good movie. It's
I'm glad they did enough franchise the hell out of this movie.
They will.
No. They tried and it failed. They did that one drama, it didn't get them nowhere. So, yeah. As for the week ahead, what are we watching? We are watching Veteran.
Yes.
For week 2, directed by Ryu Song-won. Came out in 2015.
I have watched this movie, but I'll be honest, I'm not quite. I'm like drawing a blank if it is a buddy cop or not.
Oh god dang it!
It might just be one dude.
Wow.
But
we got bamboozled, everybody.
I think Ma Dong-seok comes out in this too, but I think he's a cameo.
Oh okay.
If I remember correctly.
He's not playing.
It's been a while since I watched this movie, but
I have never watched the movie, so I have no input at all.
If it's not a buddy cop movie, I'm really sorry.
Yikes. Yikes. We started off so strong.
Maybe we should do this third week and let double check. And we'll
come back around at.
It's a cop movie. I just don't remember if it was a buddy cop movie.
It's a cop movie. It qualifies, right? Right. It's a cop as a team, right? Man. That was like thinking about like the Outlaws. Do you think the Outlaws is a buddy cop movie?
Who's the buddies?
All of them.
It's just model.
It's just model.
Well, it's more like I wouldn't say it's a buddy cop because
it's a team effort.
Yeah, I think maybe the second one, Outlaws 2.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit more of a buddy cop movie.
Because it's more of him and the chief, right?
Yeah, because they go to where do they go?
Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam.
Yeah.
And there it's a little bit more like them two.
Right. But that's only like that first half. Because once they go back to Korea, then it's
now you're nitpicking. Well, because it happened though. You can't say it didn't.
I know you're kind of right. They have a good, back and forth in the Vietnam.
But I wouldn't call it Outlaws like cop.
Have you seen? I don't know if I thought about this when we were making this series. That one movie where it's like they're like an investigation unit, but then they go undercover to like stake out this gang, but then they run a chicken shop.
Extreme Job. That's not a buddy cop though. Because like
too many buddies.
It's too many buddies, yeah. That's like a whole crowd.
But it's like an ensemble. Is that like a subgenre like ensemble cop?
I think it's like a variation of it, right? It's like
sure.
Oh yeah, it's a buddy cop. Why not just add more people and make it more jolly,
One is a party.
It's kind of like a variation of a heist movie, I think. More or less.
Kind of.
Because like what they do is like they're trying to infiltrate this like gang or whatever, right?
Right.
So it's more of like because they have like specialists, right? They have like different people who are good at different jobs, and they're all like work together to infiltrate.
It's like a spy, like a variation of a spy movie a bit.
Yeah, like a mixture of that.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm coming up with more serious ideas as we speak. All right. Yeah. Well, let's just hope that Veteran is a.
If it isn't, at least it's still a good movie, right?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I will tell you those thoughts later. All right. Yeah. So that'll be that for Midnight Runners. Next week will be Veteran from 2015. I'm not really sure if that's available anywhere, but good luck, I guess. Other than that, quick shout out to our Patreon page if you want to watch it on a Monday versus a Friday. Come and subscribe early. and you get those episodes early, as well as some other goodies. Maybe talking about a movie pretty soon, some extra stuff. Other than that, we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.